This is an excerpt from an autofiction, Four Snapshots of a Creek, which is included in my new collection of memoir pieces, autofictions, and short stories, Remembering Richard and Other Tales of Unease, about the unease which lies just below the surface of life. Four Snapshots of a Creek, 3 Summer Heat. In the middle of the heat wave, Mum decided to go and stay for a while with friends of hers in the country. This was something she did from time to time. Dad was obviously not invited. She took Garth with her because he was still the baby of the family. Charlie had started on his first holiday job, so he was seldom home. That left Dad and Sam struggling on through the long, hot days together. At first, Sam filled in the time by continuing to go to the beach every day with his friends. But gradually, even that palled, and he began to spend more and more time on his own, brooding, dreaming, drifting along in a semi-somnolent combination of adolescent languor and heat exhaustion. Dad, preoccupied by his own concerns, hardly seemed to notice. One day, Sam dragged himself through the oppressive afternoon heat down the garden path that went past the bungalow in search of a cool spot to rest under a shady tree. He found himself standing on the bank of the dried-up creek. He was surprised to see that the dark brown water in the pools under the banks had turned a diseased-looking milky white, covered with a crusty, dirty yellow scum. It didn't look right, and it didn't smell right. It smelt, in fact, as if the water itself were rotting. Then he saw with horror that eels had begun to climb up the banks and wriggle across the grass on either side, as they sometimes did in summer anyway, migrating from pool to pool in an effort to get away from the diseased-looking water. Except they weren't getting very far. They were only getting a few feet from the edges of the banks, where they stopped moving. There they rolled onto their backs and died. As they died, their stomachs swelled up like semi-transparent greyish-coloured balloons and burst, spilling the contents of their stomachs onto the grass. These piles of rotting insides stank even more than the creek itself, Sam realised. The whole scene was overcast by a pall of unnatural, almost surreal disaster. Dad! Dad! Before he knew it, he was running up the garden path like a little child. Dad! Something's wrong with the creek. It's poisoning the eels. They're coming up out of the water and dying. The words came tumbling out of him in panic and confusion. Dad looked at him nonplussed. This wasn't something he wanted to deal with on such a hot afternoon. Where? What's happening? He spluttered. Come and see. Sam practically pulled Dad along with him by the hand down to the bank of the creek. Said Dad, confronted by the carnage. He ran a hand through his thinning hair, both puzzled and appalled. In his way, Dad was as fond and protective of the creek as the boys were. He liked to take specimens out of it and look at them through the microscope he'd bought, fancying himself as a bit of a scientist lately. Someone's put something in the creek, the bastards. We'll have to tidy the mess up, I suppose. We can't leave these eels out here to rot. They're a health hazard. The flies are gathering already. So, surrounded by clouds of flies, in the hottest part of the day, they hauled eels up from the bank of the creek to the vegetable garden, where they dug a mass grave for them. Some of the eels were enormous, 4 to 6 feet long and as thick as a man's thigh. Sam had no idea, after all the years he'd lived there, that eels as big as that lived in the creek. It wasn't easy lugging them in the heat. Halfway through, Dad suddenly decided he had something more urgent to do and left Sam to finish the job by himself. Sam laboured on until late afternoon, when he covered the last of the stinking, fly-ridden pile with rich black earth and patted it flat. He felt, as he was doing so, that he was burying the last of his childhood.